If you're DIYing your own kitchen remodel, the countertops can be a bit unsettling. Why? Because unless your family has a granite quarry mining business or you plan on installing laminate, which I hope you don't, you're gonna have to rely on the pros a bit for the fabrication of your counters, but that's actually a good thing because the more DIY friendly the counter, the less likely it's going to increase your home's resale value. So in this video, I'm gonna review some of the best countertop options as well as some you really need to avoid. And I'm also gonna show you the entire counter installation process from start to finish. So if that sounds good, let's get into the video. Before we can install the counters, we have to install the kitchen cabinets, which I did in my previous video, which I'll link down below. We need to have the cabinets in for two reasons. One, we have to get the approximate square footage for how much counter material we're gonna need. And two, nobody's gonna be able to measure for the countertops until those cabinets are in. When it comes to picking your countertop material, there are so many options, but the Mount Rushmore of countertops, at least in my opinion, are marble, granite, quartz, and solid surface / porcelain composite. Starting with marble, I think it's my favorite in terms of look. It has a very kind of high-end, luxurious feel and look. It's got some pretty unique veining and colors, and it's pretty heat resistant on the pro side. Now for the cons, it's extremely expensive. I'm doing the cost on a scale of 1 to 5. I'm giving this 4 in terms of cost. It's pretty porous and soft, so it scratches easily, and it requires frequent sealing, and I consider it kind of a high maintenance counter. So for those reasons, I'm gonna skip on marble.
I'm out for that reason.
Next up is granite, and in my opinion, this has been kind of the poster child for counters, at least for a long time. On the plus side, granite is heat resistant, it has a classic natural look, it's scratch resistant, and there are many unique color and pattern options. As for cons, it's not quite as expensive as marble, but still expensive, and it does require some periodic sealing. Our next counter is quartz, and unlike marble and granite, which are natural, quartz is 90 to 95% quartz stone, but then you have pigments and resins that are kind of blended all together and man-made into what we know as quartz. With quartz, you kind of get the best of both worlds in terms of durability as well as affordability, which is why I installed quartz in my previous kitchen, shown here. Quartz is very durable, it's scratch resistant, it's non-porous, so it's virtually maintenance free, you have many color options, and the cost is pretty good. Although quartz is super durable, if you put a super hot pot down on the quartz, it can scorch due to the resin, and if you put turmeric or beets or something on the quartz, it can stain a little bit, but you can usually get it out if you scrub it real hard with some elbow grease. Now, transparently, I fully intended to install quartz in my new kitchen, but that was until I started shopping. So I went to quite a few different counter suppliers. I went to kind of some small mom and pop shops like this one, and then I went to the big box stores. But when I was shopping, I kept being drawn to this one specific product. It was called Taga by Dekton, and I had never heard of Dekton until I came into Home Depot. So I did some research, and apparently it's made out of quartz, porcelain, and glass, which gives it this glossy look, which I think caught my eye. They also had this product called Dekton Awake, which I didn't pay much attention to in the store, but when looking at it online, I think it's gonna be the one. I sent an email to Dekton to kind of get the scoop on this product, and apparently it's extremely durable, it's scratch and stain resistant, it's virtually maintenance free, they have a bunch of color options, and it's UV resistant, so it's becoming more and more common for outdoor projects like outdoor kitchens. As far as cons, that same durability that's a pro also makes it difficult to fabricate. The cost is comparable with granite and marble, so it's a little more expensive, and from what I've read, it can chip if it's subjected to a hard impact. And in full transparency, Dekton did offer to provide the slabs for this project if I just paid for the fabrication, so that made the decision a little bit easier as well. But at this point, you can grab your drawings, your 3D renderings, your square footage mock-ups, whatever you've got, and have a seat to go over the counter options with a design professional. At this point, they'll run the preliminary numbers, give you a ballpark estimate, and once you pay the deposit, it's time for measurements. The countertop fabricator is gonna come to your home with one of these specialty lasers, which is gonna get the precise measurements for your specific countertop. Again, this is why you need to have your cabinets in before you can really advance your countertop selection. From those dimensions, they're going to generate a layout drawing for your approval, and sometimes they'll give you a picture showing the veining of the counter to make sure you're happy with how everything is going to line up. After you give your approval, your fabricator is going to grab your slabs, and then they're going to cut them either using a wet saw or a water jet, fully customized to the measurements taken in your kitchen. Okay, my counters get installed tomorrow, so I got a lot of work to do. And you don't have to do this before the counters arrive, but I highly recommend that you plumb your sink and you run the electrical for any kind of disposals before the counters arrive, because that way you can access everything from up top as opposed to just to the side. So a little pro tip, if you do plan far enough in advance. One lesson learned, don't mount anything so high that the sink, once you install it, is gonna hit it. Ask me how I know. And obviously we can't install the disposal or the P-trap until the sink arrives, so I'm just gonna stub this out for now. With the sink plumbed and this built-in microwave installed, it's time for the counters. Now, this is up there with Christmas morning. I am definitely excited to get this installed and to see how everything looks. The install crew is typically gonna grab the largest slabs first, take them inside, and then preliminarily place them on top of your cabinets. And speaking of Christmas morning, check out this wrapping. All of the counter slabs are going to be placed initially, and then they're going to go back later on and make sure that everything is adjusted perfectly for your kitchen. And I decided to have some countertop installed on top of this bay window to essentially make it counter space. I think that was a good idea, but let me know if you agree down in the comments. And you may have noticed from the fabrication drawing that there are a lot of slabs, and that's because I'm also doing the backsplash. To mount the backsplash section above the stove, the crew installed a ledger board similar to what I did to install the upper cabinets, and then applied adhesive to the wall. And I do want to give a shout out to the Granite, Marble, and Express install crew that worked in my kitchen. These guys were fantastic and they did an awesome job. This piece right here over the stove was probably the most dicey just because it was a tight fit, but that's to be expected because typically you're going to measure the countertops first, get those installed, and then come back and measure for the backsplash. But because they were doing me a favor in terms of timeline, they did everything at once, but that did require a few field modifications to get that backsplash to fit perfectly. But just like with all the other vertical applications, they're gonna apply some adhesive to the wall and then push it into place. For the backsplash, it seemed like threading the outlets through the counter was probably the hardest part of the install, but once those were pulled through, it usually went in place pretty easily. Now, obviously, when you have the two slabs pushed up against each other, there is gonna be a small seam. And to fix that, they're gonna apply an epoxy resin in between that gap and then use this hydraulic tool, which is then gonna pull those two slabs together perfectly flush with each other, and that's gonna make that seam virtually disappear. And this is a great example as to why this type of counter is gonna raise your property's value and a DIY butcher block probably won't. Market research suggests that butcher block, concrete, and laminate are gonna do the least for your resale, so I really recommend that you stay away. But these are great for like a workshop or a shed, so do whatever you want, it's a free country. And as they close up this next seam, I wanna ask for your feedback down in the comments. What counter materials have been best for you guys? Which ones have let you down? Do any of you have experience with Dekton? Any feedback you provide is gonna help somebody else out, so I would appreciate it. And obviously, as those two slabs get pulled together by that hydraulic tool, some of that epoxy resin is gonna make its way out, and they're just wiping all that off before it hardens. And we made the decision to extend the backsplash all the way to the end of the wall here, and that included a small little sliver, as you're seeing, which is gonna go between the cabinet and the end of the wall. And if you're wondering why the top of the counter has a 45-degree miter, it's because we're gonna be installing a waterfall edge. And this is because the side of that cabinet is so prominent, it faces the living room. I think this is going to be a really good statement piece. And just like with the other seams, they're going to apply epoxy to both of the mitered edges and then push it together. And after it cures, that's going to be a rock solid connection. But don't get me wrong, these mitered edges and waterfall edges are certainly going to add to the fabrication cost of any counter project. But because the sides of those cabinets are so prominent in my kitchen, I think it was a no-brainer, and I think it was definitely worth the added cost. And the team is at the home stretch here. They're doing the final polishing, they're cleaning everything off, and then they drilled the holes for the sink, the soap, and the filter faucet. And with a little bit of caulk and some final cleaning, this project is complete. Let's take a quick reminder look at where this project started, and here is a look at the final result. So here's a look at Dekton Awake in my kitchen. Let me know what you think of the final result. Overall, I think it looks really good. I think it clashes a little bit with the flooring I put in, but other than that, I'm super happy with how it turned out. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Let me know your experiences with different countertop materials. And like I said, Quartz has been my go-to. I'm looking forward to seeing how this holds up. In the next video, we're gonna wrap up this kitchen remodel, and I hope to see you there. Thanks again for watching. Take care.